One thing I've said many times in the past, which has made plenty of support mains hate me, is top lane is the hardest role to carry within League of Legends. The reason I say this is because top lane is so damn isolated, it feels near impossible to affect the rest of the map, especially when things go poorly for another lane. If you're playing jungle or mid and your bottom lane starts feeding, for example, you can always just gank or roam around pretty easily, but top lane is so far away from Dragon and the other 4 members of the team, leaving to go help one can very easily cost you a creep score lead. It can lose your tower, and a lot can go wrong even if you have something like teleport. Well, today I'm going to talk about what you can do and what you really should be doing if you're playing in any lane, you're winning your lane, but everyone else seems to be feeding and you don't know what to do. This game is being taken from a game I played on stream yesterday. I've been playing a lot of fun stuff on stream recently since rank doesn't really matter right now until the reset at least, but this game I decided to go try hard with Aurelia and ended up winning the game even though our bottom lane fed the enemy Twitch very early on. Our Ezreal specifically started off the game 0-5. This was on stream. I made plenty of mistakes that you guys can point out in the comments, and things could have been a lot worse, but it's still a pretty damn good example of why you shouldn't give up even after a little early game feed. The first thing I did this game that I try to do every game is focus on my own lane. A good rule of thumb for all of you is don't blame anyone else for losing their lanes if you can't win your own. So for the first 10 minutes of this game, I focused entirely on winning top. Despite the fact that the enemy jungler put up some considerable pressure on my lane, I was still 1-1 at this point in the game from trading kills with Sion earlier, but I dealt much more damage than him in lane, seeing as we were hitting mid game, which is Aurelia's strongest power spike. I knew I was stronger than him right here, so I decided to go for a kill. I warded my lane to make sure Elise wasn't ganking, and then just a simple 1v1 Sion kill, pretty standard Aurelia play. Afterwards, Elise started making her way top lane to try and finish me off, but with some nice maneuvering in my Q, and the help of Sejuani, of course, we were able to burn her flash and finish her off as well, netting me a total of 2 kills, burning the jungler's flash, and getting me a very, very nice advantage early on, starting the game off 3-1. This is a nice start, and I do my best to extend this lead top lane, continuing to put on pressure as it seems to be drawing Elise up for a lot of ganks. I'm able to escape most of her ganks, but eventually she does manage to catch me while I'm not looking at my ward, sneaking past it while I'm focused on DPSing Sion, and ends up picking a kill on me, which eventually leads to them taking down my top tower with the help of Katarina, who is also on her way up. But that allows my team to take Dragon, and I'm just hoping right here that I'm alleviating some of the pressure from bottom lane. Hopefully, with all this focus on top, Ezreal can have a very easy time CSing, or at least not have to worry about jungle ganks down bottom. As the game rolls onwards, I make some mistakes and don't end up doing nearly enough with my early advantage, mostly going 1-for-1 in team fights throughout the mid game. As we hit the 20-minute mark, I'm 6-5 with the enemy Twitch at 8-3-7, not to mention Katarina, who's 6-5 as well. Finally, though, I start to make some good decisions along with the rest of my team. We start grouping and trying to force some team fights or catch out some picks since we aren't really that far behind at this point in the game. Here we catch out Elise and pick up 1 kill on her, then the rest of the team finishes off Sion as I do my best to zone out Katarina and Twitch for the rest of the fight. As a top laner, it's really easy for me to deal with these fed enemies since I can burst them down and CC them very easily as Aurelia and most other top laners. Katarina won't go anywhere near the rest of her team just because I'm standing here. My threat of bursting her down is that high. You're also going to be seeing me getting a pink warding trinket later on so I can do the same thing to Twitch, making sure his stealth never lets him sneak past me. I can do a very nice job of splitting up the enemy team if I play this situation correctly, and nullifying a lot of the damage that's going to come out from Katarina and Twitch if we really do have good team fights like this. Not everything continues to go so well though. I'm still dying a lot in team fights and not putting my early lead to good enough use. Giving up kills the way I am in some of these fights isn't okay. Me going 1-for-1 in team fights is overall pretty bad. I have been picking off Twitch for the most part, which is a decently good trade, but those deaths are just as bad as Ezreal's deaths or anyone else's, if not more so. Maybe Twitch was able to snowball the early game off of Ezreal's deaths, I guess, but I shouldn't be feeding the flames of this terrifying fire by giving up my own killing sprees and my own advantages just because I'm dying in team fights. Maybe a few sacrifices for the sake of the team are decently good if they're for good trades, but typically my team hasn't been able to follow up after I dive in to kill Twitch, which has led to some very bad situations and multiple instances where we get aced. Finally, here comes the decisive moment of the match. Around the 25th minute, we spot Twitch going down bottom lane to pick off Ezreal, as he always seems to be doing, thanks to some good warding placement. After chasing him for a while, I'm able to close the gap with my Q, thanks to my pink ward, which makes him blow his flash and still lets me finish off the kill. The rest of the enemy team is going to show up, teleport in, and use all their ultis to pick off Blitzcrank, and eventually Sejuani here, since Ezreal made a bit of a mistake and backed to base, which allows them to fight us 5 versus 4. We end up going 1 for 2, which would have been a loss in most situations, or maybe gone even since Twitch was so fed, but the enemy team is going to make a big mistake here and try and press their advantage. They push down mid lane and try to take the tower despite the fact that 3 of us are still alive, and they used 2 key ultimates in that last team fight, Scions and Namis. Twitch doesn't come to help them out since he's been dead and he's just going to go farm bottom lane, and we're able to get 3 kills in a very nice team fight, losing nobody thanks to my Guardian's Angel, and since Twitch decided to go bottom lane instead of come to that team fight, we're also able to take Baron off of this, and after healing up and buying some last items, we have a few final team fights which allows us to win the game. This game wasn't as bad as a lot of the other ones out there. Ezreal could have fed a lot harder than 0-5, and other people could have fed too. Diana could have fed, Blitzcrank could have fed. All sorts of things could have gone even worse for us. But the thing that you should all take away from this game is how we were still able to win despite the fact that the enemy AD carry got fed very early on. My focus on him and Katarina, killing them early in teamfights and noticing when they made mistakes, was able to help win us the game and control their snowballing. This game wasn't perfect for us. I mean, I died 10 times by the end of it. That should never happen in any game, but it's still a pretty good example of why you shouldn't give up or just quit because one lane starts losing early on. Team fighting in the mid game decides more solo queue games than laning phase ever will. 99% of solo queue just seems to be teams throwing the match between themselves, so I encourage you all to keep on playing through rough laning phases and focus on dealing with any problem champions who might snowball the mid game rather than just giving up. You'll be surprised at how many games you'll win. Thank you all very much for watching, good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.